You can normally tell that a question mark is coming because certain words such. One thing that semicolons and colons do is separate clauses. But before I get down to explaining what that means, let's start at the beginning. What's a semicolon? Well, a semicolon is that little punctuation mark that looks like a dot over a comma. And what does it do? Well, usually it stands for a pause in a sentence. But the reason why you need to pause is because there's more than one idea in the sentence, and so the semicolon makes this clear to the reader. Sentences shouldn't have more than one idea unless they are linked in some way, and the semicolon is one way of linking independent ideas in a sentence. For example, consider this. There are two independent ideas here, so this could be written as two complete sentences. He opened the bag, the diamonds fell out. Or the two ideas could be linked with a connecting word, such as and. He opened the bag and the diamonds fell out. But you can also use a semicolon. He opened the bag. The diamonds fell out. The semicolon here separates the two ideas into two clauses, and you could say that it gives a greater sense of balance to the sentences than the other two alternatives. Now, I've told you a lot there. Let's see how much you understood. Drag the check to the sentences which you think use semicolons correctly and the X to those which you think do not. When you've finished, click Done. Yes, well done, that's right. The first two examples are correct. The semicolon separates two clauses which could really stand as separate sentences. They create a sense of balance in the sentences. They keep them flowing. However, the second two examples are incorrect. The semicolon in number 3 should go after beautiful, so we make two clauses. In number 4, the semicolon should go after straw, as this completes the piece of information about the lions, before the writer starts to talk about the tiger. OK, so let's move on. A semicolon can also be used to break up the different items in a longer list. But if the list is longer and more complicated, the sections of the list can be broken up by using semicolons. For example, look at this sentence. To make this cake, you will need 2 pounds of white flour only available in France, some fresh unsalted butter from Denmark, 3 fresh eggs and a large pot of cream. Now, as you can see, the elements of this list are not just single items. To make the cake, you need a number of elements. You need 2 pounds of white flour only available in France, some fresh unsalted butter from Denmark, 3 fresh eggs, and a large pot of cream. As you can see, a semicolon can be used to break up the different items in a longer list. The semicolon should be placed after the entire units of sense in lists. There is no need to put a semicolon after 3 fresh eggs because it's followed by and the same rule applies as for commas. So, that was a bit of a mouthful. Let's see how much you understood. Put the semicolons in the lists by clicking in the correct places. No, I'm afraid you haven't quite got that right. The semicolons should be placed after entire units of sense in the lists. So, the list consists of apple pie and custard, cakes bursting with cream filling, chocolate shapes packed with fruit, bread and cheese from France. There is no "and" in this sentence, so 3 semicolons are required. Put the semicolons into this passage by clicking in the appropriate places. Yes! Well done! You really seem to be getting the hang of this. Check your answer on the screen. The colon introduces the list. There is no "and" in this sentence. But then there should be semicolons after see and break. So let's move on. One common way to introduce lists of items is with a colon. But what is a colon? Well, a colon is that piece of punctuation that looks like 2 dots, one above the other. And what does it do? Well, basically, it tells the reader to pause and wait for what follows. That is why it is so often used for lists. The colon slows you down and draws the reader's attention to the start of the list. OK, so let's see if you can do it. What I want you to do is drag the check to the sentence or sentences which you think uses colons correctly and the X to the sentence or sentences which do not. When you've finished, click Done. Yes! Well done, that's correct! The first 2 examples are incorrect. They do not use the colon to introduce a list of items. The colons should go after "you need" and "remember to bring these for the exam." However, the second 2 examples are correct. The colon goes just before the list of items. OK, so let's move on.